This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Okay, so what are we talking about today then? Well, this is a video that was suggested on the live stream a few weeks ago. Somebody, and I do apologise, I can't remember who it was, suggested in the chat that I do one of these videos, of which there are a few bouncing around YouTube, which are basically, sage words of advice to the novice guitarist, the beginner. There's so much stuff out there, so much information that it's hard to know what's going to be useful and what isn't. So, the idea of this video is I'm going to come up with essentially 5 things that I think are, priorities for any novice or beginner guitarist to basically consider. Starting with
strumming. Keep moving.
Yes, strumming, keeping moving. Okay. One of my bugbears is when I start seeing strumming patterns written out as down, down, up, down, up, up, down, up, that kind of thing, where it's just, a series of downstrokes and upstrokes quoted in a particular order that, to the person who's written it out, in their mind, gives you the correct strumming pattern for the song. Let me be clear on this. Any strumming, until somebody invents a method of strumming in that direction or that direction, there are only 2 directions that you can strum in. There's this direction, and there's this direction. Okay? And if you've just done one of these, before you can do another one of these, you have to do one of these. Because, what goes down must come back up again. Okay, so any kind of strumming pattern where it's quoted as down, down, up, up, or anything like that, anything where you've got 2 consecutive strums in the same direction, you don't really want to be taking much notice of that, okay? Because if you get into that habit of only moving the strumming hand or strumming arm, because it comes from the elbow, the motion, if you get into the habit of only moving that arm when there's a stroke to be played, you end up running the risk of playing like this. And it's wooden and it's mechanical and it lacks any kind of fluency or anything like that. Basically, the strumming motion is simply just keep going down, up, down, up, down, up, in sync with the music, and all you then do is, and you'll get to the point where you can improvise this, hit the strings or miss the strings, as suits your fancy, basically. So, like that, you see that the motion isn't changing, but the rhythm that you're hearing is, and that's a result of the different combination of hit and missed strokes. Okay, so it's all about keeping that motion nice and fluent and fluid and relaxed and not taking any notice of any strumming directions that are telling you that there are a downstroke and then another downstroke and then an upstroke and then another upstroke consecutively, because that's not how it's done. Next.
Strumming. Avoid the swing.
Yes, avoiding the swing. Now, first of all, let's figure out what a swing is. Well, normally, if you've got 4 beats to the bar and you're dividing each beat into 2 parts, that means you're going to be counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that would be played like this. Okay, and then, as you saw earlier, you can sort of have a little bit of a play around by missing some of the strokes and, not making contact. Strumming thin air on some of the upstrokes or downstrokes, basically, maybe like that, okay? But the motion keeps going. So that's based on the count of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And what you're doing is dividing each beat into 2 halves, okay? That is what we call a straight 8th note or quaver rhythm. What a swing is when you divide the beat, rather than into half and half, you divide it into 2/3, 1/3, and that goes like this. Now that's not necessarily wrong, because, you know, some songs absolutely need that feel to make them work. You know, it's a massive part of blues, it's a massive part of country music and many other styles of guitar playing. The point I'm making is that many beginners, many novices get locked into that way of playing. It's a habit that they pick up, and then everything they play is played like that, you know. So for instance, you might have you know, a well-known song by Paul McCartney, which should go like this. I won't play any more of it than that. I think you know which one it is. And you'll get a beginner who will have settled into this involuntary swing way of playing, and it will end up sounding like this. And it just doesn't sound right, whereas a song like Crazy Little Thing Called Love by Queen absolutely needs that swing. So it's an approach, it's an effect that you need to be able to turn on and off as required by the song that you're playing. So it's important that you don't settle into it as a default way of playing, because it's like a prison to try and break out of. So how can you avoid it? Well, just count what you're playing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like that. So as long as you're not saying 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and with that sort of elongated pause between the number and the back end of the beat, then you should be okay. So it's just something to pay attention to when you're learning to strum, and, you know, it's a trap you want to avoid falling into, of only being able to strum in that swingy kind of manner. Watch out for it. Next.
Tune up by ear.
Yes, indeed. Tune up by ear. I've been doing this job a long time now, it has to be said. And everybody has a guitar tuner these days, and I use one myself, and, you know, it's a fantastic thing, okay? But if the only way that you can use a guitar tuner that you can tune your guitar is by using a guitar tuner, it's a little bit like going to a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old, a kindergarten child who's just taking the first steps in terms of learning to count, for example. And give them a pocket calculator and say, there you go, don't bother learning to add up. You wouldn't do that, but many people have that approach on the guitar. Well, you don't need to tune it by ear, there's a little gadget that does it for you. And as I said, when I first started teaching the guitar tuners existed. I'm not that old, but, you know, they were something that you invested in after a while. You know, because they were a little bit more expensive back then, basically. So you kind of bought one after you'd been playing a while, and by which time you'd already kind of learned to tune it by ear. If you don't know the relative tuning method, basically you get this string in tune, you know, to some external reference, a tuning fork or a pitch pipe or something. Then you go to knocked the mic. You go to the 5th fret on this string. That gives you the note to tune the next string. You go to the 5th fret on this string, which gives you the note to tune the next string. You go to the 5th fret on this string, which gives you the note to tune the next string. You then go to the 4th fret on this string, which gives you the note to tune the next string. And then you go to the 5th fret on this string to give you the note to tune this string. Okay? Learning to tune up like this does a number of things. First of all, it teaches you to be able to hear when something's in tune, which, if you think about it, is a massively important skill for any musician. More and more these days I'll be teaching students, and, you know, they'll be playing something and say, you know, your guitar's out of tune. And the reaction I'll often get is it? You know, they can't tell. They've never developed that ear for learning when something sounds in or out of tune. It also comes along when we start getting into playing lead guitar, and the whole topic of string bending comes along. Okay? What you're doing there is you're basically retuning the string by adding extra tension to the string, and you've got to be able to hear when it's in tune. If you've spent a bit of time learning to tune up by ear, then this is, and it's easy. I even have some students now who, whenever they're going to do a string bend, they clip on the headstock tuner and they're looking at that to see whether or not their bend is in tune. Do it by ear. Okay, that's what being a musician is all about. And other things as well, just the subtle thing of adding vibrato to a bend. Like that. What you're doing when you're adding vibrato is you are wavering the note around like a fixed point, the actual bullseye of the in-tune note, and you're kind of varying it around that. And the only way you can hope to do that is if you've got a clear idea of where that point is that you're kind of hovering around when you're adding the vibrato. And all of this stems from that basic beginner, or used to be a beginner, skill of learning to tune your guitar by ear. You'll snap a few strings along the way, but that's not the end of the world. What you get in return is, a much better set of ears and much more skill as a musician further down the line. So it's a vital one, this. That's why I'm talking about it. Next.
Bar chords. Keep at it.
Okay, yes, bar chords. This is the stumbling block for many guitar players. I was in a band, dear me, gosh, about 7 or 8 years ago, and the rhythm guitar player had been playing for decades, my age. And this person basically couldn't play a bar chord. Everything was, open position cowboy chords, and, when that didn't work, get the capo out. I've nothing against using a capo. I'm probably going to do a video on how to use the capo, how to make the use of it in future at some point. But the thing you should never really use it for is just as a way of cheating your way out of playing bar chords. Here's the thing. The learning curve that exists between not being able to play bar chords and being able to play bar chords is the steepest part of the learning curve when you're playing the guitar. Nothing else, I promise you, will ever be that difficult again. The transition from not being able to play a lead guitar to being able to play a lead guitar. The transition from not being able to do some advanced twiddly lead guitar technique, not being able to do it to being able to do it. Okay? None of those learning curves are, in my experience, as steep as this first real kind of trial that you experience as a guitarist of mastering bar chords. So you can look at it like this. Once bar chords are, under your belt, once you can do them, once you've mastered them, nothing else is ever going to be that difficult again. So just grind on through it and persevere, and you'll get there. The other thing that puts people off learning bar chords is it's a combination of two separate elements. You could have all of the finger strength in the world, but if your bar chord technique is bad, you'll never get a good sound out of your bar chords. And you can have perfect technique, but if the strength isn't there, again, you're not going to get a good sounding bar chord. So what happens is a lot of people spend time getting the technique right, and they will have perfect bar chord technique, but the strength isn't there yet. So that is a really frustrating no man's land to be in, because you're at a point where you're doing everything right and it still isn't working. And, obviously that's a very frustrating, kind of place to be in, but you've just got to keep at it and keep practicing the technique and keep, accepting the fact that you're getting a dead note here and there in a bar chord. Keep practicing the technique, making sure you're getting it right. Be meticulous about it, and the strength will come. And as I say, once it does, you've got your bar chords mastered, And, that's the hardest work of learning to play the guitar. Done, dusted, out the way, and it's a fun ride after that. So keep at it with bar chords. Next.
Understand what you play.
Yes, indeed. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, oh, blimey, he's going off on the theory thing again. I'm not, I promise you. You need as much theory to play whatever style of music you need to play. Let me explain. If I was teaching a student who is, a massive fan of Green Day, or, that kind of 90s, 2000s kind of pop punk sort of stuff, I'm not going to be teaching them all about, super Locrian mode, whole tone scale, diminished runs, and, altered dominant chords and any of that sort of stuff. Why? Because they don't need it. It's not going to help them to understand what they're playing. It's about having enough information in your head to make what you're trying to do easy to remember. Because if you are just memorizing what you're doing by, kind of patterns and shapes on the neck of the guitar, ask anybody who's learned the pentatonic boxes. Pattern 5, for example, which is this one, is very often and very easily confused with pattern 2. So if you're just memorizing this stuff as abstract shapes, there is a strong likelihood, I would say pretty much a cast iron certainty, that you're going to end up playing half of one pattern and half of another pattern, or play the wrong pattern at the wrong time, giving you the wrong scale and therefore wrong notes. But if you understand why your fingers are going to where they are going to, then it makes it much, much easier to remember. You're not just filling your head full of abstract concepts that you just have to, kind of pull out at the right moment, because that's what you've memorized, that's what you do, at that particular moment. No, you understand what you're doing, so it makes sense why you're doing it, and it makes it much less of an exercise in memorizing, the stuff that you're playing. I always think of it like this. Imagine if you had to give a speech in a foreign language. There are two ways you could do. Let's say you had to give a 10-minute speech in, I don't know, Portuguese, as an example of a language that I don't speak. There's two ways you could do it. You could either memorize that speech phonetically and, just come out with a pattern of sounds and deliver it, much like apparently the two ladies in ABBA used to do when they were first, having hits back in the 70s. They didn't understand the words they were singing. It was just stuff they'd learned phonetically. So I'm told, at least, anyway. You can either learn it phonetically, or you can have a basic grasp of the syntax and grammar of the language that you're speaking. And then if you lose your place halfway through, you can wing it. You can kind of get back on track, and you can still make sense of whatever it is you're trying to say. It's much the same on the guitar. Music is a language, and if you have a rudimentary understanding of that language, then it makes remembering what you're trying to do much easier. And, if you're doing it, let's put it this way, if you're doing it just by memorizing shapes, patterns, and, and abstract looking things on the neck, then you're doing it the hard way. So there you go. Those are the 5 tips that I would offer to any novice guitar player. Keep the strumming hand moving. Avoid the involuntary swing on the strumming. Learn to tune up by ear. Keep at it with bar chords. You will conquer them eventually, and that's all of the hard work pretty much out of the way. And just have a basic grasp and understanding of what you're doing, because it makes it easier to remember what you need to be playing. And that's it for today, folks. Hope you found the video useful, informative, and, maybe a little bit inspiring in some way. And if that's the case, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not give me a like while you're at it? As I said earlier, don't forget the live stream, Friday, 5 p.m. UK time. We talk about music and guitars and drink beer. What a great way to kick off the weekend. I would love to see you there if you can make it. As I say, I'd love to see you there. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.